Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of the new season of our Students' Union podcast, LeicsChat. So this season's all about how to adult, and we're going to be building off themes that we've got from our How to Adult campaign. And today joining me is Lily from our research department. Hi Lily. And I'm Bethan, for those of you who don't know, and I work in support. So today's episode is called Moving In with Your Partner. You'll get to listen to mine and Lily's experiences, some funny stories probably along the way, and just our general advice to people who are thinking of making the same decision. So to start with, Lily, do you want to tell people a bit about yourself and your situation?
Yeah, so my name's Lily, and as Bethan said, I'm the sort of the research manager in the Students' Union, and basically I moved to Leicester in 2012 when I first started my degree, and pretty accidentally I've just never left. But basically, what had happened was I met my partner at the beginning of my degree. But we didn't, I guess, get together until maybe like the end of 2015. And because we were kind of like friends and stuff, and we hung around the same circles, we kind of ended up living in each other's pockets anyway before we kind of moved in with each other. So it kind of became a sensible move in terms of financial reasons, which sounds so cold. But also a kind of just the fact that because we already knew each other, it was easy for us to kind of get on. So we kind of took the plunge, I guess, not early in how we knew each other, but early in our relationship.
Yeah.
So we moved in with each other in 2016, and we'll probably talk a bit about perhaps what people may have thought of us moving in with each other in some cases, like maybe people would have thought that it was quite early, but well, we're still here, so on right. But yeah. So yeah, we've lived in shared housing with other people. We've lived in like the most dilapidated flat I have ever been in my life, which caused a horrendous kind of, oh, it was awful. It was so mouldy. And then finally we've got a house in Clarendon Park now. We still rent. I don't think anyone can really afford to buy a house anymore. If you can, you're incredibly lucky. But yeah, so it's definitely like been like a lot of different sort of steps and challenges along the way. And like, what about you, Bethan?
Well, you've been in your situation longer than I have. Like, kudos to you guys, 4 years. That's pretty cool. So I met my partner during my master's. So we didn't actually know we both went to Leicester. So I've been at Leicester now since 2014. But we didn't know each other through our undergrads, which is pretty mad because we actually shared similar classes and things. We just never met. So we did the same masters, and all our friends joke about how cringy and corny it was because we were pretty much together within like a week and a half of knowing each other. And yeah, obviously I've been together ever since. Again, like, we moved in probably way sooner than most people would have expected, and I don't even think it was something that we generally even thought about. It was all quite quick in how it happened. It was a similar thing to you guys, really, in terms of it made sense with finances. So we'd come to the end of like our teaching year with our masters. So we'd only actually been together like about 10 months. So pretty soon, like, obviously, like, I've had relationships longer, but we didn't move in. But then, like you said, we're still here, so we're good. But yeah, we moved in about like 10 months in, and then we just kind of had to, really, because it was the choice of we either live separately in different cities, or we made the choice to move in together because we couldn't afford to both get our own place separately at that point in time. But it was a good decision. Like, we've not regretted it or anything, or had too many major arguments, so it's all good.
Yeah, I genuinely think that, like, I think you're completely right about highlighting the fact that none of these concerns, I guess, really pop into your head. It's more what other people say, and people like, oh, have you considered the fact that maybe you don't know what it's like to live together? And I was like, well, no, but I'm never gonna know unless I try it, am I? And I think you're right as well. It's kind of about quality time, and like in the past I've had kind of long distance relationships, and to be honest, frankly, I just know that they don't work for me. So again, with these kind of with the situation that I was in, it made sense, a bit like you, to be like, okay, so we're going to settle in the same place for now, because that's what we wanted to do. And when you're in a relationship, I don't think it's kind of corny, I guess, to want to spend time with your partner, and if together is actually going to facilitate that, especially when, like, I don't know about you both, but we're so busy. It's actually nice to be able to sometimes at the end of the day just sit and sort of spend some quality time together. And if you live separately, I think it works for a while, and it works for a lot of people. But for me, it's really important for me to have my own space. So having someone to share that with me, I feel a lot more relaxed. Whereas in someone else's house, I think, especially if they had housemates and stuff, I feel like I'd struggle to truly relax, if that makes sense.
No, I agree. Like, it's funny you were saying, like, other people's reactions. Like, I feel his housemates weren't at all surprised, because I basically lived with them for most of the year previous anyway. And then we had the issue at the time of I worked a 9-to-5 job, and Matt at the time worked pretty much nights. So unless it was his day off, I didn't really get to see him, because by the time I came home, he'd be like getting ready to go to work and stuff, or he'd maybe finish at like midnight. And obviously I'm not going to see him then, but we'd always be having conversations like, well, if we lived together, even if it was just being able to sleep next to each other, at least it's a bit more time spent together than this constant clash of schedules and things.
Definitely. And I think as well, it's kind of, I think, like, we had I guess a similar thing. Like, I feel like I'm copying you, like, yeah, same. But I basically in 20, like, I moved in with his housemates, which I think actually, I don't know whether everyone was happy about that. I kind of started a trend where all of the girlfriends moved in, and it became some kind of like tiny Clarendon Park house with about 8 people living in there, which was challenging with one bathroom. But it did come with some perks. Like, I did clean the kitchen, which none of them, I'm sure that they'll listen to this and disagree with me, but none of them cleaned it. So yeah, no, I don't think like our sort of like friends were surprised, really.
What, did you have any reaction from your parents?
I think my parents just wanted, I think they just wanted me to be happy. They were, they, as a lot of parents do, had felt the full kind of throttle of my teenage years, and me going up and down and meeting the love of my life and having my heart broken. They went through all of that, and I think that they were just happy to see sort of me sort of happy and stable. And I think as well the fact that he was kind of a familiar person, so it wasn't like someone out of the blue. Like, they always knew who he was, and to be quite honest, it was amongst our friends and everyone, it was a kind of running joke. Like, so it kind of became some sort of like, oh, well, like, what about Joe? How's Joe doing? I'd be like, shut up. Like, but I guess they were right in the end. But yeah, so they were they were happy about it. And if anything, my mum was just really excited for me to have my own house that she could sort of give me stuff for. So she was like, oh, I've got all of these plates in the garage, I've got a dining table, and the amount of stuff that I was given, I'm very grateful, obviously, but I feel like that she was more excited for that rather than worried about things that were happening. But I think as well, in terms of my parents, they wanted me to they didn't want me to kind of be by myself, especially when I was like starting a new job. I was kind of like fresh out of university, I guess. I kind of like, I value my own space, but I also sort of like kind of like having company there, and I was a bit worried about like, I guess like adulting. I guess I was really worried about kind of what the future held, like was I doing the right thing? So actually having that kind of sense of stability there, I think they knew that it reassured me. So it reassured.
Yeah, no, I had a similar experience, really. Like, I remember one of the times where it like properly sunk in, because usually, like you said, I've had maybe a bad string of relationships, and my parents tend to be like quite cautious if someone new had come into the picture, because yeah, let's face it, more often than not it didn't go great. So I was hoping that like I didn't really know basically how to tell them I'm thinking of moving in with my boyfriend, who I've had less than a year. I kind of thought there was going to be a lot of arguments, a lot of battling with it, and I was really surprised, like we got moving in presents. Yeah, I know. Like my grandma gave us a set of tea towels and stuff. But yeah, they were all really for it. And I think maybe like you, it was because maybe I was in that life stage where I was going to have to start making some big decisions, where do I live, which direction my career was going in. And I don't think they felt comfortable with me living with strangers. And they were like, well, this guy seems okay. I'm sure she'll be fine. But yeah, it wasn't too bad.
I think you really kind of like nailed something for me just then about I didn't think it was really a big thing, but looking back, I think it was a big thing for other people. Because so for me, I think that especially when you finished uni, there's so much going on, there's so much pressure to do the right thing. Like, do you do further study, do you get a job, have you got the right job, is this the sector that I want to go into? Like, I was a teacher quite briefly. I've figured out that wasn't for me, but since university I've literally flip-flopped in so many different kind of professions. But like in hindsight, I think that it was sort of moving in, especially for my family, was the first sort of signifier of, I guess, me kind of growing up. And
yeah,
they perhaps noticed that at the time, which I guess is why our families, like, I guess, celebrated it in such a way. But it really passed me by at the time, because I was just like, yeah, it makes sense. I love you. We get on. We do similar things. Yeah, we'll move in. It's fine. Whereas, like, looking back, I'm now like, oh, actually, that was actually a massive decision, and it didn't occur to me at the time at all that it was.
Yeah, I feel as well, because like we were doing it for not just for financial reasons, but there was like a big aspect of it. It's not like that romantic moment in a movie where someone gives you a key and a present box, like, and you can move into them. It wasn't anything like that for me. But then I remember as well. So when I moved out and stuff, and was putting stuff in my dad's garage and things like that, he was there going, well, do you still need this friends poster? Like all these pictures and things. And I was like, no, could you actually hold on to them just in case this situation doesn't work out and I want to decorate my room again?
I was on the phone to my dad the other day, and he mentioned some boxes in the loft, and I was like, I've literally not looked at those boxes since I moved out of your house 8 years ago. I think you could it's probably safe to throw them away. He's like, oh, but you might need them. And I was like, well, what's in them? And he was like, I don't know, you pack them. And I was like, well, if I don't know what's in them, then I think that family and friends can be very sentimental, more sentimental perhaps than we are.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. So if we move on to something that we're going to be talking about in a few of these podcasts is expectations versus reality. So for me, an expectation was that, so when I envisaged moving in with someone, so I obviously had shared housing. You know, I had 1 year where I lived on my own, but it was more of just a room scenario, and then the rest of the time it was shared housing, and 3 out of 4 of the years it was with all boys. So I had never a situation to make somewhere pretty. So I always thought throughout university, oh, when I meet that special someone, move in together, it's going to be lovely, and even when I was starting to move in with Matt and stuff, I was like, oh, we could have this colour scheme. We can start making it wonderful, maybe find somewhere with a bit of exposed brick, and we can have a rustic theme going on. Basically thought I was going from 0 to 100 in the leap, and then the reality was we had to get somewhere quickly because our contracts were ending quickly and I was starting a new job, and yeah, we didn't really have the money to do this wonderful big grand design that I was hoping for. So really, it does look nicer obviously than a student home, but it's definitely not a Pinterest board that I was hoping for.
Oh my gosh, same. So I think my expectation was pretty similar. It's about house hunting. So I was really excited the first time that we were looking around houses, and the thing is that I had to commute, so I had a very kind of small avenue which I could kind of explore that was within our price range. I could get to the train station quite easily. Funnily enough, I ended up leaving that job about 6 months into living in that house, so we were kind of just stuck there.
Yeah.
And we went in and we were looking around this flat, and it had French doors. It was lovely. It was white. It was clean, and I don't know. I say that I had a bad feeling about it. I'm sure that I've just made that up in my head, but looking back, I swear I'm convinced that I knew something was going to go wrong with it. But yeah, so we went and we sort of decided on this house, and moved in, and then mold, and the fact, so there was just mold everywhere, and my house hunting dream was kind of being sort of thrown out the window. And I think that when you're in a student house and you've got a problem, you go to the landlord, but when it's kind of, I guess it's kind of a shift towards it being your home, you end up arguing with each other about things that aren't each other's fault. I'd be like, Joe, there is mold on the bathroom ceiling again. Why didn't you bleach it properly the first time? Because I can't reach the ceiling. I'm 5 foot tall. I have to rely on tall people to do these things. And he'd be like, well, what? It's I've done it. It's there's nothing we can do. And then you talk to the landlord, and the landlord wouldn't do anything. And it'd end up being this perpetual cycle of misery. And I guess it ended up with the fact that luckily we live in a really sort of nice house now. But what that ended up with was the fact that instead of a kind of a leisurely looking for houses, it was a competition. We had barely been in the house that we lived in 30 seconds before we were right, we're gonna reserve it. It ends up being about reserving the best thing that you can get for the cheapest price immediately, as opposed to actually being able to look around places. And I don't know, I always had this romanticized view of kind of a bit like you, seeing the nice fireplaces, and I was like, oh, it's going to be our home. It really isn't. It's not. Get what you can, and
yeah.
And then if you're lucky, you're lucky. We got lucky this place, but my gosh, we were not lucky the first time, so I'm glad.
Yeah, I guess it's because when I think of someone, because I would say that I'm quite like a few maybe life stages ahead of some of my other friends who aren't in relationships, or like maybe they're still at early stages of dating and things. So I haven't really had like a fair comparison. So I guess my only comparison was like when obviously like my parents and stuff are looking for properties, but they're buying. I'm renting. There's a big difference.
I asked if there was a combi boiler, and I don't even think I really understand what a combi boiler is, but I know people ask. So I was like, oh, does this have a combi boiler? But and I guess another expectation is that at the moment we've got a garden. It's great, but the reality is you have to actually do gardening, which I cannot do. I do not understand things like weeds. I don't understand how they, like, I pull them all up and they'll be back in like 2 minutes, and I hate it. I hate gardening. My mum's obsessed with it. I hate it, but Joe also hates it, which means that one of us has to kind of do this chore which we hate, because we decided to get a property with a massive garden. I'll never again. I just want a patio next time. And like, oh no.
No, I'd understand. That's one of the reasons I'm quite grateful we don't have a garden. I guess one of my expectations was that I felt like there was going to be like a big drop moment where I felt, okay, I feel like an adult now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been like occasional moments. I remember when we got our first Christmas tree, I was like, oh, it was fake and it was very small and from Tesco. But I was like, oh, we've got our very own Christmas tree. This feels so grown up. But yeah, the rest of it, like maybe like the first night or two, it was like, wow, this is our own place. Like there's no housemates. It's all completely private. But after a while, like it just becomes the everyday, and I don't feel like I really feel massively different from when I was a student.
I agree there. I have a similar Christmas tree story. We did the same thing 1 year, and now the last 2 years running, we've not put up any Christmas decorations because I don't want it's dusty and it's untidy, and I've become so much more practical. So I've gone from romanticizing things like Christmas decorations, having loads of trinkets around, to the reality of the fact that we both work full time. We don't have the time to do unnecessary things. So practicality. So yeah, I don't even have a Christmas tree anymore. It is a bit like you. Ours was rubbish anyway. It was like a twig, but I think like it's weird, because I think you're right about it. Kind of, you start off and you guess you have like sort of these romanticized views, but actually it's kind of a lot more. It's a lot more about the fact that you are a partnership in, like, not just sort of like romantically, but in terms of sort of things like running the house, doing the chores, and it's actually a lot of effort. And I don't think I realised that as well. I don't think I realised. I think Joe will probably mention this later, but how particular I was, and sort of when you live with housemates, it's easy to have your own kind of habits because you almost live individually. When you live as a couple, you live together, and then those habits that you've been able to kind of sort of hold on to actually like become identified, and someone points it out and is like, Lily, why do you do that? And I'm like, well, 'cause doesn't everyone do that? And it's like, no they don't.
Yeah, no, I know completely what you mean. Even like the argument of whether Marmite belongs in the fridge or the cupboard, like that's become an argument unnecessarily in the past.
Yeah, no, and just like yeah, putting things away. So I guess when you grow up kind of having certain sort of places for things. And I guess what it means to me is that I'll look in the place and it won't be there, and I'll be like, I can't understand why someone would put, I don't know, onions in the fridge. I don't keep onions in the fridge.
Matt does that too. Why is that a thing? They should not be in the fridge.
I don't know. not stacking, so like going into the fridge and there'll be some meat on one of the top shelves. No, on literally there's a drawer that's got a picture of like a pork chop on it or something. Like, it cannot be any more obvious. But yeah. So, and I think it was those little things that you just don't even consider, and then when they pop up, it's like, but you both being incredulous at each other as to why you would do things one way or the other leads to, I guess, a bit of tension, because you both, like, I'm quite stubborn, you both think you're right, and you're like, no, I need you to tell, like, I need you to learn, I need you to know that this is what you should be doing. Onions go in the cupboard. And he's like, but they don't, like, why is that a problem? Like, why can't they go in the fridge? Like, is it hurting anyone? Is it bothering anyone? I was like, it's bothering me.
Yeah, no, that I hate that too. That brings us quite nicely then into, what would you say is your top major pet hates of living with your partner?
Oh my gosh, right. Number one, right, I've said I'm sure putting things on shelves which I cannot possibly reach, in particular kitchen utensils. I do the majority of the cooking. I love cooking, but when, like, Joe tends to do the washing up, which I'm very grateful for, but yeah, he puts things away and he doesn't think about the fact that I can't reach. So especially when he's away at work, so he works away quite frequently, I literally have to like climb on the units and hope that I don't fall off and like crack my head open to just get to like a grater. And I'll be like, I've said this a million times, can you please not put the grater on the top shelf? Yeah, of course I won't, don't worry. Next day it will be on the top shelf again, I guarantee. Do you want me to keep going?
We can go in turns, give Joe a bit of a break. One of that, I feel like I've ironed it out now, but when we were first here for like the first few months, we used to take it in turns to do our washing, our laundry, and whenever Matt did it, he had a habit of just lifting up whatever was on the top of the basket, so not even thinking about which clothes went with what, so there'll be colours and whites in there, but not only that, it would always be the same clothes going through the cycle. And it was only when I realised I haven't seen like that pair of trousers for a long time, and there's a smell starting to build within the bedroom, that I realised that every time he did the washing, none of the previous washing that had maybe been there for like a month had been touched. So yeah, impractical and disgusting.
Oh my gosh, no, same. There was a time, it would have been maybe a month or so ago, where I hung the washing out, and there were like 8 pairs of identical jogger shorts, and that had like taken up the entirety of the washing. And I was just like, why am I constantly washing jogger shorts? Like, where is my washing? And then I looked, and yeah, my washing was at the bottom of the wash basket. And I asked Joe, I was like, oh, Joe, like, do you take it from the top? No, I don't take it from the top. I wash everything fairly. And I'm like, you wash everything fairly. You telling me that you wash things fairly means that you are definitely taking it from the top and making it an excuse.
Yeah. What's another one of yours?
So my one is also washing related. I feel like there's a theme here. So I tend to have a shower first in the morning, and I get ready, and as I'm getting ready, Joe has a shower. And he's actually stopped doing this very recently, in fact, because I brought it up because of this podcast. But there'll be a pair of jogger shorts again and a top on the bathroom floor after he's had a shower. And it doesn't matter whether those jogger shorts are a week old or a day old, he will just leave them on the floor. And I got into this habit of every time I was to kind of like go downstairs to do the washing, I would pick them up and then I would put them in the wash basket. And I was like, I'm sick of doing this. Every time I go into the bathroom, there is a pile of the same clothes there. So what I started doing was we've got a spare bedroom where Joe's wardrobe is, and I started, instead of bringing them, putting them to the wash, putting them in a spare bedroom in a pile, and see how long it took him to kind of realise. Had this mounting pile of like jogger shorts and t-shirts, and lo and behold, now he doesn't wash his jogger shorts after one go anymore, and he does wear them for a couple of days, which is, yeah, a relief. But yeah, it became one of those things that I saw the pile and I just got enraged, like this kind of pile on the floor, and it was like my eyes were burning and I just wanted to like scream. I was like, why is this washing still there? But yeah, so I'm over it now. He stopped doing it, thank God. But wow, I get so angry over jogger shorts.
No, I completely get that. There's definitely been times where I pointed out like jeans can last longer than 2 wears and you don't have to keep putting them into the wash. I think one of my main ones is that I still moan at him now, and you're probably listening to me in the other room going, oh, for God's sake, she's bringing this up again, is the sink. So I hate dirty sinks. I will, nearly always, scrub the sink before I even do the washing up, because what's the point? The dirty sink will just get the dishes dirty. Yeah. We take it in turns to do washing up. Like, it's kind of a unsaid thing. Every other night, for most part, one of us will do it, unless someone's got like something busy on with work or something like that. When Pat does his washing up, he will decide to leave everything to soak. I say in quotations, which I've never done before. And this is what we were talking about earlier. Like, there are some things that maybe some people do that think everyone does. I've never done that before. My mother's never done that before. No one in my family has ever left things to soak. Maybe if we'd like done something that's, I don't know, like a pan with a roast on, and the pan's got really like charred and fatty or something, that is a suitable time to leave something to soak. Not a bowl that you had cereal in. And so he will leave it to soak, forget that he left it to soak, and then I come to the next morning when he's already gone to work, because he leaves earlier than me, and I have to wade through all this murky, disgusting water to take the pans out, to then wash them myself, just to try and get the plug out, because that's now cold, useless water that I can't use, and the pots are probably still dirty. So my rule is either wash it in the moment or just leave it on the side. I'd rather a load of dirty dishes were left on the side that I could quickly sort through. But yeah, cooking. But that's my biggest pet hate.
So top tip, don't have a washing bowl, and our plug, do you know the plunger? We don't have one for the kitchen sink. It got lost, and it was the best thing ever. Now nothing is left to soak because it can't. And I have the same thing about dirty sinks. So after I do the washing up, granted I don't do the washing up very often because I do the cooking. So that's kind of like a sort of an unsaid thing. But I'll be surprised if Joe will do the washing up and then hasn't cleaned out the sink afterwards. And I'm like, why wouldn't you just do that? Like, for me, it's just like the next step. But I don't want to be overly critical of him because, as I said, he does do a lot of washing up for me.
Well, that brings us to the boys telling us their pet hates. So I have some written down by Matt.
I have mine written down as well.
So it's the first time I'm reading them. So number 1, I do not like how you always leave hair on the shower walls, and that every time you wash your hair, it will continually build up and ruin our drainage system.
I've got the same. Hair everywhere, floor and drain. 5 exclamation marks. Like living with a Labrador.
I don't feel we can be criticised for that. You can't help that what naturally happens.
know, and as well, I am just as surprised as anyone at the amount of hair that falls out of my head. It is a lot. I can't contest it because it genuinely is everywhere. But I guess for me, I kind of get because I've always done it, I'm kind of used to it. So I was just sort of like, I'm used to people sort of like nagging me about it and bringing it up, because my mum used to, when I was growing up, complain.
Yeah, same.
She was like, your hair is everywhere, Lily. And I was like, I can't help having dark long hair. Like, if I had blonde short hair like you, your hair's probably everywhere as well, but you can't see it.
So number 2 on mine is you sleep in the middle of the bed. That's what this says. So I feel like this is a constant pain in my boyfriend's life. You see those like memes where it's like her half of the bed and his, he's got like this little strip. I think I'm just so used to having my own double bed to myself.
Oh no, I must admit, this is really bad, but when Joe's working nights, I love having the whole bed to myself. But I don't even sleep in the middle. It's like I sleep on his side as a treat, because for some reason I always wanted his side of the bed, and me being a really lovely person, let him have it, because I was like, I'm a stand-up person. So yeah, when he's away, I sleep with my head on his side of the pillow, diagonally across the bed. So that's a bit of a treat for me. Right, this isn't a surprise. Not quite as laid back as me. Different expectations of how things should be done and when.
There's probably lots of people listening to this thinking, Lily sounds as though she has very different expectations.
I think the thing is when. So for me, I'm one of those people who I think of something and I just do it. I've got too much going on in my head not to just do things when they come to me. So if I'm like, oh Joe, can you put a wash on? I, in my head, expect him just to put a wash on immediately. I'll come downstairs again. I'm like, Joe, have you put a wash on yet? He's like, no, but I'm going to. And I'm like fuming. Why can't you just put the